What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Art of Suffering podcast with Dalton Darnell. Today, we have a friend of mine. His name's Cam. We're from Ohio, West Virginia, Ohio.
Yep.
Way up in Ohio. So me and Cam, I can't remember. Did we rope together at that rope when I came to?
Yeah.
Or was that you and Dad?
At the Haley Cunningham benefit roping.
That's right. Many moons ago. And we were young men back then. That was a long time ago. So we got Cam on today. We're going to visit with him just about his life and what he's got going on, what God is doing with him. And so I'm just going to pitch it to you, Cam. Let's get started from the beginning. Kind of where'd you grow up and how'd you get to where you are?
Okay. So I have been in Ohio all my life. I was born actually about 25 minutes from where we live now. We're in the central Ohio area. Right now I'm in a little town called Marengo. It's got one stop sign and one stoplight. If you blink, you're going to miss it. But so I guess to start from the beginning, so I'm actually a twin, and we were born 3 months early. So I was the heavy child. I weighed 2 pounds, 2 ounces. And my brother was 1 pound. Oh, I can't remember the ounces, but we were tiny. Like my folks said that, a washcloth could be our blanket pretty much when we came out. And we were in the NICU for quite a while. We weren't supposed to make it. The doctor said that he's like, your twins are, more than likely not going to make it. And God had other plans. We did, but due to being born that early, the side effects of that was my twin brother, his retina actually detached when he was 10. So he didn't know it at first. I can remember he came downstairs one day and told my mom, he goes, I can't really see. And I love my brother, but he's never been one much of pain or, a little dramatic at times, or at least he was back then. So nobody really took him seriously. And so his retina became detached due to that. And I've actually had cerebral palsy from day one. So
really?
Yeah. So there's all different kinds of forms of it. I don't know the technical term of the cerebral palsy that I have, but I got it because the doctor said it was probably due to a lack of oxygen due to the umbilical cord being wrapped around my neck. So my form of CP affects my lower body in my legs. My upper body literally pretty much compensates for everything my lower body can't do. But yeah, like I said, it affects my balance. I've had to go through surgeries after surgeries after surgeries, and physical therapy after physical therapy, and hours of doctor's visits and wheelchairs, and relearning how to walk 3 to 4 times, and doing all that stuff. So
now let's explain, now that we're here in the story, I want you to tell everybody what you do for a living, because that makes what you do for a living a pretty incredible thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I actually train horses for a living and give roping and riding lessons, horsemanship lessons, and all around, stockmanship lessons.
Now, how the heck did you get into that? Like, were your parents, did this start when you were young, or how old are you?
So I am 31 now.
Okay.
So yeah, my family actually, on paper, I should not be doing what I'm doing. So growing up, my dad actually was in a rodeo family. So my whole side of my dad's family does rodeo. They don't do it so much anymore, but like my cousin just got 9th at the National High School Finals rodeo.
That's awesome. What event?
The tie down. He qualified in the team roping and tie down roping, but qualified ninth in the calf roping.
Man, that's awesome.
So yeah, so I grew up around horses. My dad's side, where I grew up, we didn't have horses until I was in the 5th grade, but my grandma and grandpa did. So we would always go down there, and so they lived 2 hours away from us, and we kind of call it the Corzatt compound because they have 120 acres that everybody has built, a barn on, and they've run barrels and roped off of. We're the black sheep because my dad wanted a job here in Columbus. So my dad used to tie down rope, but he kind of got out of it. So then my mom's side of the family does motocross. So I did horses, and I don't have the balance to ride a bicycle or, roller skate or do any of that stuff. So my brothers raced dirt bikes and I raced 4-wheelers up until I was 16. And then I snapped my tibia and fibula at a motocross race and decided to get out of that and focus full time on the horses.
So this is crazy, man. Like, do you have any kids?
No.
Okay, so I got 2.
Yes.
All right, and I'm not gonna say I'm a helicopter parent or nothing, but I sure don't like going to the ER. You know what I'm saying? And this is ended up. I got some pretty careful youngins. Like, they're paying pretty close attention to when they're doing stuff, and your parents to have they didn't hold you back a lick. I mean, they were just like, yeah, jump on that 4-wheeler and get after it. Like, I mean, you got a kid with cerebral palsy, and they're just like, yeah, you can get up there. How did that affect your life and your mentality towards what you were doing?
Yeah, they've definitely been a huge blessing. I'm actually going to backtrack a little bit to give you a little bit more context. So my first surgery that I had, I was 8 years old, and I had what's called a dorsal rhizotomy. And so growing up, like, I had braces on my legs all the times. They gave me like steroid shots to try to help with the pain and, my muscles, relaxing my muscles because my muscles were so tight all the time. And then we had a doctor in Columbus. I can't remember her name because it's been so long ago, but she said there's a place in Minnesota that specializes in these very, very extensive type of surgeries. And so my mom thought her job was, she was still working. She was a professional photographer at the time, but my dad traveled a bunch for work. And she thought if she stayed home with me and did all the physical therapy with me every day, that would kind of make it to where the surgeries, we didn't have to go that route. And so this doctor told us about this place in Minnesota that did surgeries like this. And when I was told, of course, I was 8 years old. So when I was told, hey, we're going to take you all the way to Minnesota, and you're going to have a surgery, and you're going to be able to walk or think you know how to walk when you go in, but when you wake up, you won't be able to walk. You won't be able to feel anything. You literally will have to start from square one. And I spent 6 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks in the hospital, and you're supposed to stay there for 8 weeks. It's 6 hours of physical therapy every day. I had to do school also while I was there in the hospital. Like, it was grueling. It was very, very challenging, very scary at times. I was pretty stubborn. I wouldn't let the doctors really touch me or do anything. So my mom, she stayed there with me, pretty much living in the hospital. And she had to learn how to pretty much take care of me because I didn't want these people I didn't know touching me.
Yeah.
So that was tough, but I'll never forget. I was in physical therapy, and they said you get to go home, and I said, well, I thought I had a whole nother week, and they said, yes, you're supposed to, but you, like, through your work ethic and in your grit, they said you're past the point of you don't need to stay here any longer. You can go home. So I get home, and that surgery did help a lot. To put it in context, before I went and did the surgery, I had to do what's called a gait lab. And if people know how they make video games, they pretty much hook you up to every sensor like you're going to be in a video game to test your range of motion, your flexibility, your how much oxygen you burn, and all this different kind of stuff. And when I got done, the doctor said you use 200 to 250% more oxygen than your quote unquote average person. So,
Good Lord.
And I would burn through a pair of shoes, like a brand new pair of shoes, in 2 weeks, just because my feet were so toed in, and I'd walk like on the sides of my feet so bad that pigeon toe doesn't even describe it. Like it was,
Yeah.
I'd walk a giant hole in the side of a pair of boots or shoes in 2 weeks. So,
yeah. That's insane. So your folks, your mom sounds like a pretty tenacious human, like just somebody who's like, well, we're just going to get after it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. She, her and my dad have been a huge blessing, along with my wife. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be the person I am today. My mom and dad, especially, like, I grew up in the church. We went to church every Sunday, and but a lot like what you said on your first podcast, I would go to church and I would get stuff out of it, and I knew about the word, but it didn't really resonate with me. It was kind of one of those things to where I'm like, yeah, okay, he picked a topic and he's talking about it, and sometimes, like, it would gut punch me a little bit, but for the most part, I'm like, okay, like I wish I was in Texas or something, going to a cowboy church that I can relate to a little bit more. But one of the cool things about my mom and dad, the current place we're at now, so we run two separate businesses out of the same place. So we all live in the same compound. Where I'm at is an apartment that I built with my friends and family, and it's a massive 20 by 24 apartment up in the hayloft of my barn. Like, it's not very big because I'm never really in it. But when we moved here, we took a big leap of faith. And when we first started the lessons way back when, we were praying about it, and people kept asking if we would do lessons or whatever. And we said, no, we don't have the barn. We don't have the acreage. So we built our old place. And I'll never forget, my mom was praying about it, and she said, Lord, if it's your will, this is what we'll do. And I will do a Bible verse. So she's got a scripture for every week, and she applies that to her horseback riding lessons. And she said, if it's your will and you want to make this happen, she goes, I will do a Bible verse after every single lesson. And after every single lesson, she picks a Bible verse and then explains how it either relates to her life and what she's going through that time, or what we're going through, or what the horses are going through during our training process. So, yeah, it's definitely very, very strong roots and foundation with them. Me, honestly, not so much until honestly, really a couple years ago, I was pretty lost. I had just gotten a divorce, and that was, honestly, looking back, that was the best thing that ever could have happened to me. At the time, I thought it was the worst thing that could happen, but it was the best, because I was in a relationship, and my whole life revolved around trying to prove to people that I was worthy, that I could either train their horse or I could rope good enough. Heck, I remember when we met each other at the roping, I roped with you and your dad, and I was on my brother's borrowed horse, his Appaloosa horse, that I had roped off of for like 3 weeks prior, because my good horse come up lame. But I just remember, like, all I wanted back then was to be, because you could pick a team or you could be on a draw team, and nobody knew who I was and, anything like that. And I'm like, heck, if I just get picked on a team by any one of these guys, regardless of who it is, like, I've made it in life. That's my final goal. But I was doing it because I had no self-worth in myself, and, needed that gratification from other people. And then it kind of took me, hitting rock bottom, and I was still hanging around good people. Like, obviously I was around my folks a bunch, and they were, honestly, the way I was treating them in my previous relationship, because everybody I was around was, swaying my thoughts and my opinions and making it seem like the people who were trying to help me were trying to manipulate and, control my life. So it made me resent and hate them. And so that's where, like, I even told my mom and dad a few months ago, I'm like, you guys should have kicked me out. Like, you should have just been like, look, you're a lost. I was drinking too much. I was hanging around the wrong people. I was, traveling. All I wanted to do was just be somewhere else and go rope. And I would overdraft my bank accounts if it meant I could go to the next roping. And so I still had that love and passion for it, but I kind of got, taken down the wrong path. And you said in one of your podcasts, iron sharpens iron. And to me, there are no truer words. Like, now I'm very, very selective about, who I want to spend a lot of time with. And, like, I'm so excited to come to North Carolina to do the clinic that you're doing, because, man, my lesson kids think I'm really good at roping. And when I watch your videos, I'm like, I don't hold a candle to anybody. But it's where, like, what you and your dad and Abby and everybody at 310, what you guys represent is there's so much more that goes into it than what people realize. And you become who you surround yourself with. And so when I met my wife, Michelle, she's from Texas. I met her in PA at a roping clinic I was teaching. And at that time, I had sworn off women, and she wasn't looking for a relationship, and I sure as heck didn't think I was going to find it in the middle of PA. Yeah. And so fast forward, we got married last September, and her and her family and my family have been very supportive of everything that, we're doing. And she's helped me with my business and everything. And she's a part of it. She tells everybody, she goes, I don't really want people to know about me. I want to be in the background. You can be, the person that everybody talks to. So, yeah.
That's how my wife is.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. we just like to rope, you know what I mean? And it's it's one of those things. It's always interesting to visit with people about their life and the things that they've experienced. And it's funny. It sounds like, we've kind of had very different paths, but as far as the road to Christ, kind of the same one, you know, and in very different ways. And kind of what I want to dive into or ask you about is what was the moment or the space and time, the shift in your life that you went from I'm not good enough to I'm a son of the King? Right.
So I guess, you know, and I was thinking about this last night. I guess there's kind of two events. So one of the first one would be after my surgeries. When I was 10 years old, there was a lady that we went to church with. Her name's Belinda Harding. And at the time, she wanted to start a therapeutic riding facility. But in order to do that, you need, you know, a bunch of certification and, for lack of better words, a guinea pig to see if your idea is going to work out, because you need a lot of money or a lot of help if you're going to get into therapeutic riding, just because of the whole liability of it. And so when I was 10, I was pretty much her guinea pig. And then when I was 12, she's like, look, I can't take you any farther. You've already outgrown my program. You know, I can't help you. But so she ended up going on. And for years, she did a therapeutic riding facility, but with people who are so much more heavily involved than me, like people who are paralyzed in wheelchairs. And I remember this one boy, like all he could do is pretty much twitch his fingers, like drool running out of his mouth. And, you know, just at that moment, I'm like, I can't feel bad for myself. Like, I think I've got it bad, but he can't do anything on his own. He can't even hardly communicate. And so I had a horse at the time. His name was Buddy, that we bought off of Belinda's sister. And he was a 17-year-old gelding. And I had gone over there, and she had asked me if I could give a little roping demonstration to them and a little, you know, spark note story testimonial of my life and, you know, how horses have helped me. And so I went, and of course they didn't have a rope dummy or anything. And so I just went and roped cones and, you know, was riding my horse around and yada, yada. And I got done, and I was walking out with my horse to my truck and trailer. And this lady came up to me. I can't remember her name. I don't even think she gave it to me. And she said, I didn't want to come here today. And she said, but after hearing your story, she goes, I wanted to quit. I wanted to just give up. And her kids was one of the super heavily involved ones.
Yeah.
And she goes, but after hearing your story, there is a reason why I came here. And this gives me hope to keep moving forward. And I was like, wow. Like, you know, I didn't plan on that happening. That was definitely, you know, all about God's timing. And then, so that kind of made me realize, like, okay, God's got me here for a purpose. And that purpose is to, you know, even if it's to one other person, like a lot of the lessons that I do, people are like, you don't understand. My legs don't work like your legs do. And I'm like, you're right. They work 10 times better than mine.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's the only thing that we have difference is I have the time to be able to do it, but I have the drive and the desire to want to do it. And, you know, don't get me wrong. Life's not all peaches and cream. There are days where I look at my legs and I'm like, come on, you need to work better.
Yeah.
Like, this sorry colt's not responding to my legs, and I've got no more gas in the tank. I can't kick harder. So, then you learn how to adapt and overcome. So, I'll use a crop or a stick and string, or sometimes I'll put Michelle on him, my wife, and be like, hey, can you just soften him up a little bit? And then, I'll go ahead and get back on him. So that was the one big one. But then again, like I said, after that, you start to get back into that slump of, woe is me, my life, everything's against me, and, yada, yada. And then 2 years ago, when I met my now wife, Michelle, who I know she's going to listen to this, and she's probably going to, get shy when I mention her name, but she along with my family these past 2 years, that when I went through my divorce, like I said, I hit rock bottom, and I was drinking too much. I was trying to just, hanging around some people that weren't necessarily the best, role models to me. And I just remember waking up one day and God's like, look, you can either sit there in bed and wallow around and unless I'm teaching lessons or I'm working, I'm not making money. And then, my bills don't get paid. So when I was doing lessons, my lessons, people that have known me for years were politely being like, you're not yourself. And so I broke down crying, and I'm like, okay, so it's like when I was like, why'd you give me CP? Like, you cursed me with this, disease or medical, whatever you want to call it, to put a hindrance on my life. Well, when I was 16, God's like, remember, it's a blessing. And then, then it went kind of back downhill. And so I remember waking up and, God's like, look, remember why you are here. Like, I have a plan for you. You just don't know it yet. And, so I remember when I woke up, the first thing he said is, he's like, you need to go downstairs, because my folks they built a barn dominium that's downstairs. So we're very close neighbors. They're like, you need to go downstairs and you need to apologize. And let's see, that was almost 3 years ago. So I was 28. So as a 28-year-old man, where God's like, go apologize to your parents, you're like, I'm not 8 years old. I don't. And, but that was probably the moment where I went downstairs and I'm like, look, I'm sorry for everything that I've done. The people who have, kind of tried to, in a way, cast a bad light on you and make me think poorly of you. And when I kept hating on them, they just kept loving me. And so that was the moment. And then, like I said, when I met my wife, and I remember praying to God, I'm like, well, I don't even know if I want to get married again. But if I do, please make sure that she truly, her heart, is aware of my lifestyle, because a lot of people don't understand. Like, when you have livestock, it's 24/7, 365. And I said, I only want her to get along with my family and be supportive of what I do. Like, I know I'm going to be supportive of whatever she does. But when I met my wife and my parents, and a lot of my friends too, they're like, we don't, you feel like you need to essentially cast this image of self-worth so that we like you. They're like, we love you for you. And I never really understood that until, 2 years ago when I met my now wife. And, I wake up every day and I don't feel like I have CP. I mean, I feel it every day. Like, my body hurts. Like it hurts all the time, but you can, decide to sit there and be like, woe is me. Or you can decide that, well, this is, at least I'm breathing. God's got a plan. And, I'm sore and tired at the end of the day, but if I could just, I crave just roping and riding horses. If I could do that all day, every day, I would be truly, truly happy.
Hey, wouldn't we all, buddy? So 2 years ago, what I call that moment you're talking about, that waking up and realizing, right, what you got going on or your own shortcomings. What I call that is getting to the end of yourself. And that's kind of a moment I think most men have at some point. And the difference between believers and non-believers, or followers of Christ, or warriors, or whatever you want to call us, and not, is how you respond to that moment. So I had a similar moment. Mine was way before I actually became a believer. And I was in college and I was failing all my classes, and I was fishing at the time. I fished all over the Southeast for the school that I went to. And, I was failing all my classes, and my granddad had let me borrow a F-150. So I came out of the trailer I was living in at the time, and I was going to be late for a final. And when I woke up late, I knew, like, I'm going to fail this class. Well, if I fail this class, my GPA drops and I don't get to fish anymore. And that was the only reason why I kept my grades where I kept them and paid my tuition, was so that I could go fish, which, hindsight 2020, don't do that. Anyway, I run out to the truck, and I live like 35 minutes from the school, and I knew that I wasn't going to make it in time to make the class and pass the final. So when I get in the truck, I crank it up, and it had one of those old school, like 6-disc CD players in the glove compartment. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I crank it up, but I had an aux cord in the freaking truck. Like, I'd put a new radio in it, and I had an aux cord. There's no reason why that thing should have come on. And that CD player came on, and it played a song by Third Day. Let me look it up. Let me look up the name of the song. I can't play it on YouTube because of, copyright and all that bull crap. But let me make sure I get the name right, because I got it right here on my list. Let's see. Third Day. Dang it. What's it called? It's like, I got an idea, but I don't want to get it wrong.
Right.
Hang on. I've Always Loved You by Third Day. That song came on, and when I was a kid, dude, my dad spammed freaking Third Day. Like, this CD, he freaking played that CD so many times in the truck. And it was like I was probably 20 years old, maybe 21, broke down. Okay. And I was just like, man, what am I doing here? And you're talking about, this is, man, 4 years before I started really searching for my purpose. You know what I mean? But it was like one of those moments where it was like, I'm about to flunk out of college. I've wasted tens of thousands of dollars doing this. There's no life at the end of the road of fishing for me. It's like, just everything in life was just garbage, just absolute garbage. And what I think this does, is when you get to the end of yourself, you start inadvertently or subconsciously hunting something.
Yes, sir.
And what you're hunting is Christ, is the man that Christ can make you. Okay. You don't necessarily know that that's the answer. You don't know that's where you're going to find these answers that you're looking for. But what he does is he awakens this part of you as a young man that that creates an environment of like, I know I can do better. I know I can be better. I know life can be better. And then you start looking for that. And if the answer to anyone listening is unclear, the answer to these questions is Christ. So if you don't know where to look, that's where you start. Okay. The man you want to become is in that book. The man you want to become is a relationship with him. But with that being said, that is a really long road. That is not a fast thing. It's not a fast thing.
No.
So let's go from there. Let's talk a little bit about, what you got going on now. So now we're married. We got our business going. And what's that looking like?
So at this point, when I met Michelle in Pennsylvania, one of the things I was pretty terrible about was making a secure business model. Like, I've never been driven by money. I just, if I could go, if I could go somewhere to rope or to help somebody learn to rope, they'd be like, "Oh, what would you charge?" I'll be like, "Whatever my fuel costs plus the chocolate milk, and I'll be there." Like, I wanted to rope. I love to help people. So when I met my wife, she's like, "Hey, look," she said, "You've got a great thing going and you do a great job." But she goes, as a business model and as a now husband, she's like, "I don't want to be working Colts, have you working Colts till you're 90 years old."
Yeah.
And so we need to be able to keep doing what we're doing, but, learn how to
actually make money.
Yeah, actually make money and pay the bills. And I've been training horses ever since I got out of college. I bought a 2-year-old for $500. I literally $600 in my bank account, bought a $500 horse and trained her. And of course, this isn't a good business model to train and sell horses, because I had her for 7 years and didn't make any money. Didn't make any money off her, but she introduced me to, she's honestly the horse that I was using when I started the ranch roping. Little backstory on that, and I'm going to give you guys a shameless plug. Like, I had never heard of a ranch rope before. I showed up with a calf rope on a team roping saddle with rubber on my horn to a intro to ranch roping clinic, and I showed up and Seth Atkins is there, Jamie Andrews is there. They're the guys that, honestly, those two really helped give me my start in the ranch roping, along with your guys' YouTube page, because after I went to that clinic, I was like, these people are ignorant. They're trying to throw these shots from all these different sides of the cow, because all I grew up with was you're either behind that calf running it down, or you're right off to the left and you throw your rope dally and turn left. Yeah. And so even to this day, like, I'll go to Thanksgiving with my family and I'll throw a turnover loop on the dummy or long bomb hula hand. And my grandpa, who's the one who started my whole, teaching me how to rope, he goes, "I can't throw that hula hand to save my life." And I had no idea what a Wade saddle was, what a slick horn was. And at that clinic, the only reason I showed up, honest to goodness, was because I didn't have cows and I was on a 3-year-old that I had no business roping off of, but I wanted to get her around cows. And so then I saw all these guys with these, bighorn Wade saddles. But once I understood it, that changed my whole demographic, because I love the horsemanship and the stockmanship. And when people see me walk, when they see me ride, they don't really, which they could just be being nice, but most people are like, "We can't even tell you have anything until I either mount or I dismount and I start walking." And some of the comments I've got from some people, and they don't mean anything by it, but I went to a roping one time and the guy goes, "Did you get hit by a truck before you came here?" I said, "No."
God almighty.
I said, "No." I said, "I got kicked by a horse," which was also a fib. But
that's a good response to that dumbass question, though.
Yeah. So, but once I started to really get hooked on it, and I saw that you guys were posting your videos on YouTube, and then, I was like, well, where can I get one of these? Because I'll be honest, when I first picked up a ranch rope, which was a poly, which I love polys, I'm like, this thing is a wet noodle. How do people use these at all?
With skill, baby.
Yeah. And what, like, I learned the hula hand, and I thought I was the greatest God's gift to mankind. Like, I thought
it's the best shot ever, hands down, no question.
And that is, to this day, that is my favorite shot. But
hey, no doubt, man. Let's argue about it. Somebody get in the comments. Let's go. I got you, dude.
Right. But that's what, like, so when I watched your guys' videos and then I went to your website, I'm like, okay, this is a sport that I can physically get into, because tie down roping, you need to be able to dismount and run down the rope quick. I tell everybody, I'm like, if I'm running, you better run faster, because something is wrong. Now, if I got to do groundwork in a competition, which, by the way, unless you like physically absolutely cannot do groundwork, you can do groundwork, because like the first time I did groundwork was in a competition, and due to, like, my balance is terrible. If you push me too hard, I'm gonna fall. And so that's where, like, when I go to do groundwork, sometimes me and the cow do have an MMA fight. I posted a photo on Facebook, because, when I'm teaching these lessons and these kids get to a point to where I've got gentle cows and then some quicker cows. Well, they get to the point where they're ready to do it. I need to be the one to show them how to do groundwork before I just try to explain it to them. Well, I've got this bigger cow that he's been roped quite a bit, and he knows quite a bit of tricks. And I was doing groundwork, and there was a little bit of slack in the rope from, I'm not going to mention names on my lesson side, but I had a hold of that leg, but that cow flailed, and I lost my balance, which I do very easily. And that cow popped me in the head, and it looked like it had knocked off, which it didn't, but my face was just bloody. And I do not let go of a cow. Like, I will go down with that cow, and I'll do anything I need to, but I'm not letting go unless my wife yells at me to just get up and let it go. But yeah, but to that point is what we do now. Now we have, back then I didn't have my own cows. So I started just buying a smorgasbord of cheap cows that I could find, because I didn't have a whole lot of money, but this is what I wanted to do. So I had rope
diamonds in the rough, baby.
Yeah,
I love it.
I started with 3 cows. Then we bought 4 more, so we had 7. Then we bought 5 more, so we have 12. One just went to the butcher, so now we have 11. And we don't have a huge, like, we have 18 acres here and 24 horses and 12 cows. Like, we're at max capacity, but
I was about to say, a little high on the per head per acre there.
Oh yeah, people are like, people wonder, they're like, so how often? And we turn them out to pasture, but we feed. I buy so much hay, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
And but so that's what we do now. Been blessed to through you guys. I actually heard of Richard Boatwright. And we got to ride with him, it would have been about a year and a half ago, and went down with him, rode with him for a couple of days. And he helped me a lot on little exercises that would help help my horse with being on cows, learning how to read a cow, track and rate a cow, setting up for shots. Your guys' 310 EDU is phenomenal on, learning how to set up shots, different scenarios, different types of ropes. I joke with everybody. I'm like, just about every rope that 310 has made, I have bought. But now,
I love it.
Now,
Thank you. Thank you.
But now I only use two of them, which is either a Pit Viper or the Tracer. And I love all of them, but the Pit Viper my wife loves, and that's the first rope I ever used that I won a little bit of money with. And then when you guys came out with the Tracer, I'm like, this kind of brings me back to my roots, and just the way that I kind of rope. It's a phenomenal rope. So if you guys haven't heard of those ropes, go check out their website because they have phenomenal ropes, and that's all I use or tell my lesson people to use. But
thank you for the plug. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So we do a little bit of everything from. I have people. I do what we call an intro to cattle, which is designed for people that have never worked cows before or their horses have never worked cows. I want to get people interested and involved with the cattle side. And actually, believe it or not, a lot of English people, which I'm not English background person, but a lot of English people will come here and they'll use the cattle to work on the mental side of their horse, or different things like that. And then with that, it kind of grew into people are like, hey, we want to learn how to rope. So I do like a little 4-hour intro to ranch roping, which is where nobody like when they come for the first time will hard rope anything because they're total beginners. But we'll teach them how to build a loop, how to swing the rope, how to do the basic shots. If they don't have a horse, they can rent one of our horses. That way they can still experience it. And then we work on, okay, if you're here and the cow's here, this is a sidearm shot. If the cow goes this way, this would be a tip over. If the cow's standing still, here are your options to, throw X, Y, and Z. And it just gives them a little bit of taste into what is to come. And then if people want to go farther than that, then we offer individual lessons to where we can kind of cater it to where them and their horses are. So
see, interesting enough, so just to tell everybody, the first time I ever heard of you, okay, Dad went to Ohio and did a clinic. This was years ago. I mean, this might have been 4 or 5 years ago. He took Marty and Travis Newman, and I couldn't, for whatever reason, I might have had drill or something with the military come up, and I couldn't go to this clinic, and Dad goes to this clinic, and he calls me. And so on day 2 of our clinics, we do a groundwork demo. Okay. And he calls me up and he's like, man, we got this guy here with freaking cerebral palsy. And I was like, what? You got a guy in the clinic with cerebral palsy? Because like in your brain, that doesn't go together. You know what I'm saying? Somebody says that, it's like, there's no way. Like, how is this guy ranch roping?
Yes, sir.
And he was like, man, this dude gets off and is doing groundwork, and I'm teaching him the groundwork. And there was like a shade of, maybe it was timidness, maybe like that sort of deal. Like it was like, man, I don't really do groundwork. I got cerebral palsy. And if you don't know my dad personally, this is a total John thing. But excuses are not a thing for this guy. He's like, if you're going to do the freaking job, buddy, you're going to do the freaking job. Yeah. And he was telling me, and I am sitting on the other end of the phone, man, with like the most amount of empathy for another human being I've ever had, because I've been the guy that he's coaching and teaching in this way. He's like, you're going to freaking do the job. You know what I mean? And I was like, God dang, man, he got this guy up here with cerebral palsy. And I was like, well, did he do the groundwork? And he was like, you're dang right, he did the freaking groundwork. And I can remember when we came to that roping and I met you for the first time, he had you on a team. and you ended up on the ground.
Yeah.
And you went to that thing like a freaking pit bull, dude. And I was just sitting there laughing on my heart. I was like, this freaking guy, man, like Dad is such a, like, he's your typical coach. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, coach, my leg's broke. And it's like, shut up and do your job. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of his, I don't know, my lights died. Anyway, that's kind of his, that's just his vibe. You know what I mean? Like, he does not tolerate any foolishness. He's like, you're going to do your job and you're going to do it well, or you're not going to be on my team. And so I always, when you messaged me about the podcast, that was the first story that popped in my head. Cause I was like, somebody who can overcome all of these things that are just unbelievably difficult, and then still go into an environment in a competition setting and have the confidence to perform with people who got legs that totally work. You know what I'm saying? But you still go in, do the job, win money, teach other people how to do it. That's amazing. That's unbelievable to me.
Well, thank you. And honestly, your dad's mentality of, no excuses, just go do it. That's where, when I was thinking about the slogan for my business, the first thought was no excuses, horsemanship. But that's where too, and again, like I said, is where iron sharpens iron, is because my wife, my family, the people who I surround myself with aren't like, oh, if you're hurting or your legs are tired, I'm sorry, like, we'll just do it for you. Now, don't get me wrong, they help and I help them. But just a couple weeks ago, Seth Atkins was here because I wanted him to come and kind of say the same thing I was saying, but so my lesson people would hear it just in a different manner. I remember I was carrying I built this big old dummy to where it's life-size cow that you can throw off a horseback. And I was carrying that thing, and whether something is light or heavy, it kind of looks like I'm struggling, but I'm not. And Seth's like, oh gosh, Cam, let me help you. And I'm like, Seth, I got it. It's fine. Like the horse I used to ride all the time that, kind of gave me the Appaloosa was not that horse, just for clarification. And people who like Appaloosas, I'm not trying to offend you, but I'm not a fan of them. But the horse I was riding was actually given to me by Jamie Andrews, and his name was Rooster. He was a 16 two-hand bay horse.
Oh.
And he was rough as crap. He would literally, I went cow catching with Seth 2 days in a row, and we rode long, hard miles in West Virginia trying to chase these cows. I was bleeding through my chaps. Like, because, well, one, my muscles get tight, and after I get tired, like my legs kind of squeeze in like that. But this horse was rough, and he was tall. And so I remember Jamie's like, he doesn't suit me good. If you want him, you can have him. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get on that thing. I was like, it's not like in a competition, there's a mounting block or whatever. So I taught myself how to climb, for him to stand still and for me to climb up on him and monkey on him. And he tolerated me for quite a while doing that. Then I taught him the little trick about how to side pass over to a gate if there was one. But luckily now I have a coming 4-year-old that I raised and trained, and she may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I love her. She's my go-to mount and my ranch roping horse, and she's a little short horse. I call her handicap accessible. So she's a lot easier for me to mount, but that's where a lot of these horses that I get in, I don't know, how tall they're going to be, how short they're going to be. And I tell everybody, I'm like, if, I teach my horses that, well, you'll see in a couple of weeks, like when I go to mount, I feel like in my mind, my legs like doing a nice clear swing over the cantle.
Oh,
It's dragging across their butt. And, that's how I go to mount. And people are like, I had a professor in college that told me, she said, if that's the only way you can mount, you're never going to do this for a living. I couldn't even mount a horse till I was 16. So, so I ironically saw her a couple years later, and I was like, hey, just want to let you know, I am doing horses for a living. And it turns out you can teach them how to stand there and, not freak out when your foot kind of touches them. So,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, there's nothing worse than a horse that freaking grabs their butt for no reason. Like, wildly irritating. If my foot touches your butt and you grab your butt for that, we're going to move our feet. We're going to move our feet around and there's one thing, colts are one thing, but like, if we're talking about broke horses, man, like the level in which people, that's kind of a pet peeve of mine in the cowboy world is how often the word handy is thrown around. And additionally, how often the word broke is thrown around. Because there's a lot of horses that are called broke that are totally, they're not okay with anything, pretty much. Yeah. They're not okay with anything. So if, and it's a lifetime. It takes a lifetime to get to where you can make one that's really, really nice, without them being bothered by anything. But the fact is, it's like, my foot should be able to touch your butt and it shouldn't be a problem, and standing still while I get on that's just going to happen.
Yeah. I thought,
at some point.
I didn't think it was a big deal. Like I've always been, even the rope horses that I grew up around, like, calf roping, team roping horses. I've got nothing against calf roping and team roping, just wasn't my thing. And honestly, I physically couldn't do it. So when I found the ranch roping, I'm like, finally, my own thing I can be good at and, kind of set my own path. But even those, horses would learn to stand there and be still. And we went out to Wyoming. We got invited out there to go gather and brand some cows out there from a lady who I used to teach lessons. And so we go out there, and this goes back to the horsemanship side. I watched you and your dad. It was either in person or definitely in your guys' videos. You guys were riding in that Halter McCarty setup.
Oh yeah.
And I thought, at first I'm like, that is amazing. Because how I grew up, it was, like my family's good horsemen, but it was if they don't stop, put a bigger bit in their mouth, or
give the old heave ho, baby.
Yeah. So that's where when I have my Bonnie, my now coming 4-year-old, when I had her when she was really young, I was like, well, I can't ride her; she's too young. So I do all the groundwork in a rope halter. And your dad had said, I think it was on one of your horse training videos on your 310 EDU. He was like, I do all this work on the ground in this setup. So it makes sense in order to just, keep it the same and ride a minute. And so that's what I did, and along with, taking what you guys have posted and Mr. Boatwright and a conglomeration of other trainers that I've been blessed to work with, we went out to Wyoming, and this guy pulls his horse out of the trailer, and his horse is just dancing around like it's on crack, and just does a flying mount on it, and then proceeds to criticize me and my wife, because my wife, we were both on 3-year-olds, okay, that we ride them outside, but everybody who knows, Ohio versus Wyoming, they're
totally different.
Two totally different places. Mm-hmm. So we showed up, and this guy's just ripping us because we're riding our horses in a halter.
Yes.
And he's like, you're going to have no control. You're not going to have anything. And the cow boss, we get back, and he's like, your horses did phenomenal. And I'm not saying that to try to give myself or my wife credit, But that's where I wanted to prove to myself that I can make my horses as good as what I want them to be in a halter Makati setup. Now, I'm not saying that works for everybody, because I've had some people that have watched me and Bonnie ride in one, and I have Bonnie in a Hackamore now just so I can, go show her and at other places also.
Yeah, same thing, just made out of rawhide.
Yes, sir. So people will show up in them halters and be like, look, we're trying to copy you and Bonnie, and their horse is just bonsaiing with them.
Yeah.
And so, but again, I took what I saw from you guys that I've never seen before, and I was just like, I want to try that, and I kind of made it, my go-to, and that's where everybody now is like, well, Cam's just anti-bit, and I'm like, I am with this one. Like, this one won't carry a bit just because it's a point I wanted to prove to myself. But, it's just everybody's got different opinions on it.
100%. And so, man, I've been called everything from the hillbilly hip roper to a pig farmer, or the people on the internet are the people on the internet, keyboard warriors. Okay. So I've had multiple people comment on my videos riding in a rope halter, telling me to put them in a bridle, that the horse deserves better than that, and yada, yada, yada. And, it's just a different in thought process. Would my horse pack around a spade bit? Yes. Mm-hmm. Do I need it? No. Is it a signal bit? No, I don't think it is. And that's just a difference in opinion. I want to say this out loud and very clear. I don't care what you ride your horse in. I don't care. I ride in a rope halter and in a hackamore because that's what I get along with. I'm not making show horses. I don't give a crap, man. I really don't care if my horse rides around collected. I want my horse mentally and emotionally collected. Yeah. If I ask him for his face, I want his face. Okay. If I ask him to break at the pole and be soft and come to me in a trot, a lope, or a walk, or standing still, I am expecting that. Do I expect him to lope around with his head between his front legs? No, I'm not showing him. We're doing a job. I don't care. Okay. And unsubscribe if you don't like that. I'm sorry. That's just how I am. So I ride my horse with my body. When I ask him to go right, it is with my left leg. When I ask him to go left, it is with my right leg. And the fact of the matter is that I get along really well with this, right? I don't have to kick my horse to get him to lope. I have to do this, and off we go. I increase the life in my body, and his impulsion goes up, and we go faster. If I point him at a cow and he doesn't go to the cow, I move his feet and then take him back to the cow. There's very simple principles that are very hard to discipline yourself on. And that's what horsemanship is at this level. At the level of riding in a rope halter, or our goal is to ride bridleless on everything. Right. And I'm literally the pig farmer comment. I am at a guapo in the pen. Okay. On a horse in a halter, doctoring a 750-pound yearling in front of 100 people. Okay. Right. And I'm a pig farmer. Okay. The fact is that I probably could have done all of that without the halter at all. Yeah. Cause I don't touch the halter. I try not to, right? That's the goal. And so as little as possible, as much as necessary is a thing. And that's kind of how we operate off of everything, is as little as possible, as much as little pressure as possible, as much as necessary, right? If I have to reach down there and get a hold of my horse with my spurs, I most certainly will do it. Mm-hmm. Do I want to? No. I want to get along great. Do your job and I'll do mine, right? You put me in the spot, I'll rope the cow, period, end of story. So the fact of the matter is like this criticism you receive from other people, whether it be on the internet or in real life, which I've had these comments on the internet and in real life. And lots of people ask me these questions like, why do you ride in a rope halter? Well, it's because it's what I get along with.
Yeah.
I don't need anything else to get my horse to stop because I don't use the rope halter to stop my horse typically. I use my butt, my seat, right? My breath, my life. Those are the things. And so I've spent the last decade of my life hardening my mind to these people to where it's just like, and that's what I tell everybody. I'm like, dude, I don't care what you have on your horse's face. Like, we're here to do a job. If you can rope the calf and brand it and get along, great. Do what you do. But what I ride in doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter to you, or it shouldn't. And unless you want what I got, unless you want your horse to ride around, and then we can have a conversation about it. And that's the thing. Do I look at the spade bits or any bit and that's made beautifully and go, man, that's pretty freaking cool. I would hang that on my wall, but probably not in my horse's mouth, you know? Yeah. So, and if I was selling horses, Cam, I would put a bit in their mouth.
Yep.
Because the next guy's going to put a bit in his mouth. The outside horses I ride in a bit. Mm-hmm. Because do I touch the bit? I try not to. I don't want to have to touch the bit. I just want to sit down and I want you to stop, if that makes sense. Yes, so I totally understand what you're saying, talking about somebody hacking on you about that, because that's been a huge part of my life as well. It's very irritating because the period in the story where we go and what we do is one of two things. We either go to do a job or we go to a roping. And look, this is what sucks. At most of the ropings we go to, they give you extra points for riding in a spade bit. Yeah. Like, you walk in the arena with a spade bit in your horse's mouth, you get 2 extra points. I think that's ridiculous. I think that's crazy. I really do. Because here's the thing, man. Everybody says this stuff about the bridle horse, right? Okay. We ride bridle horses. We don't use a bridle, but that's our goal. We all want to make a bridle horse because the description of the bridle horse is a soft horse, a horse that is doing the job willfully and enjoys his work and moves around really nice. Like, it's a really broke horse. Right? Now, in the vaquero style, and somebody in the comments is going to correct me, and that's okay, this is like the ultimate thing, getting them to the 2-rein or whatever, straight up in the bridle, right? I'm not an expert on this. I don't know anything about the bridle other than what's been told to me, but the fact is that these people try to get their horse into the bridle so that they're, one, worth more money, right? Because they're more money if they ride around in the bridle, worth more. And 2, because I can make a bridle horse, right? Well, I'll be the first one to say it. I've seen very few horses in a bridle that are bridle horses. And so that's why it doesn't mean anything to me, because it's silliness. It's like these guys take a 5-year-old, right? And they say it takes 12 years to make a bridle horse. I completely agree. Completely agree. Unless you have a very smart animal under you that is very receptive to learning, you're going to be tuning on them all the time. Well, the definition of the bridle horse is you don't have to do that. You can step on and do the job. Blaze and Little Red, if you have not watched the Bridleless video at 310's main channel, if you haven't watched Little Red's video, those are freaking bridle horses. They've never had a bridle on their face, but it's the definition of one. If you can go Dr. Yearlin's bridleless with nothing on them, they're bridle horses, right? So that's why, like, it's the same way with saying handy or broke, or it's the same thing, man. These people just want to tell you what you do or don't have going on, and they might not even have anything going on. That's why, as a rule of thumb for myself, I just shut my mouth.
Yep.
And I only say anything if somebody says something to me. If somebody's like, why are you riding in that rope halter? And my response typically is very vague. It's what I get along with. Because it doesn't matter, dude. Who cares? If I can rope with you, do my job, get the calf roped, like doctor it, keep it alive, all the things, why do you care what's on my horse's head? You know what I mean? I promise you, he doesn't feel disrespected. All he wants to do is go eat hay and for me to leave him alone. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. Keep your chin up on that deal, because if you're ever going to sell her, which it doesn't sound like you are, don't ever ride her in her bit. Who cares? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's where the guy out in Wyoming was like, well, if you're going to sell her, and I'm like, well, I'm not. My plan was I bought her before she was born. I trained her mama. I trained her daddy. I fell in love with both of them. I begged, pleaded, and bartered to buy this horse off of the good friends of mine, Jeff and Tracy Howell, and they blessed me with the opportunity, and she is my heart horse. She is low man on the totem pole, but when I go get on her back, she looks crabby all the time. Mm-hmm. And that's simply because, and she only does it at other horses, is because she's like, he is my person and I will die for him, and I'll do the same thing for her. And that's part of the reason why I really like the ranch roping, is because of the horsemanship, the stockmanship, and you can have your own style. Yeah. And that's truly what I love so much about it is, like when I first did the first intro to ranch roping clinic, they called me a team roper before I even stepped on. They're like, mm-hmm. You're a team roper, aren't you? And I said, well, to be honest with you, I don't know what I am. I've team roped. I didn't ever, tie down rope because I can't jump off quick, can't run down quick. Like I break away out of the chute. Like that style still shows up in my roping, but I can also, like, I love the horsemanship and the stockmanship and your own style and flair that you can put on it. Yeah. While, at the end of the day, we're all trying to do the same job, and that's to be as easy on our stock as possible and get the job done, whether that's just practicing or ear tagging or vaccinating or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, like my legs don't, when someone says get your foot up by the shoulder and, hit them on the shoulder so they pivot. Well, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, my foot's going up by the shoulder, and it doesn't. Yeah. Like I ride with a very good friend of ours, Jesse Westfall. He's a top reiner, him and his wife Stacy. And so I took Bonnie, and he's top level reiner. So there's certain, like, if that's what you're going to do, which I told him, I said, I don't want to do a reining pattern. I just want to learn how to, fine tune and manipulate that body control better. Yeah. So that when I go rope a cow, no cow beats me. Mm-hmm. And but I was real worried. I told my wife on the way there, I said, I hope he doesn't make me put a bit in her mouth, because I'm not going to. And I rode around, and he goes, I am shocked. And again, this isn't to give myself credit, it's to give my horse all the credit. But he's like, I'm shocked about how soft and responsive she is, not only to your leg, but in that halter. I've never seen a horse go around like that. Mm-hmm. So that's what, top tier reiner, like the last thing he's going to tell someone to do if they want to show a horse is go put a Holder McCarty setup on their horse. Yeah. But he's horsemanship is horsemanship, and he's got total respect for me just as much as I do for him. So
well, and I talked about this. I made a video last year before the Pro-Am and talked about a bunch of different ways to be a better roper, right? And I personally believe one of the biggest ways is to have an open mind. Like as soon as you shut your head off, your mind off to everything everybody else does is stupid, will you just shut out everything else you could have learned, and I think that's important. I think it's important. If you see something that looks cool, ask about it, right? If you see something that you like, ask about it. If you see something you don't like, just don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You take what works for you and you use it, and what doesn't, you just throw it out the window.
That's right. And like the first video we ever watched was the Martin Black video, Brandon, and we never branded cattle. I'd never even been to a Brandon, and neither had Dad. And we just applied those shots to Doctor and yearlings because that's what we did, and it worked. It worked. Yeah. Anyways, so with all that being said, Cam, where can people find you? What do I need to link in the description? If you're in Ohio, this is where we need to go.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Honestly, I do majority of my stuff through Facebook because pretty much everybody's got a Facebook. So they can either send me a message on my personal page, which is Camdon Corzatt. Most people don't know my full name's Camdon because they all call me Cam. But you can look up Camdon Corzatt, or I do have a business page called CRC Ranch Horses. I do also have an Instagram and TikTok. I do a lot more posting on Facebook than what I do on Instagram and TikTok. I'm trying to be better at that. But pretty much if they want to get a hold of me, they can look me up on Facebook and shoot me a phone call, a text message. And if I don't answer right away, I live in a tin can. So when I step outside, then my phone blows up. Or if I'm in my apartment, there's where we got Wi-Fi. So,
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Well, I sure do appreciate you coming on, and I guess I'll see you in 2 weeks. Is your wife coming?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife and actually a couple lesson people that I teach, I talk them into coming.
Okay, cool.
There will be a small little group of us. So
now, are y'all all in it? Are y'all going to rope on Saturday?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So is Seth and them? I know Seth's coming. Who all else is coming from y'all's neck of the woods?
I haven't talked to anybody else. The only person I talked to is Seth, and when he was here a couple weeks ago, I told him that we were going down there and getting a rope with him. He said he was going to try to come, so I'm looking forward to him being there also.
No, yeah, I texted him maybe 2 days ago, and he said he was coming.
Okay,
which I told the host or whatever, I was like, these boys here, they'll make a freaking roping. Like, they'll rope so much your cows won't. I mean, they'll be buried in the fence panel, son, because these dudes from West Virginia freaking get after it, son. They rope. Well, Seth has made every roping we've ever had. If he comes, he ropes like freaking 12 times. Poor horse.
Oh, yeah. And I used to be like that too, but now, like I said, I've got a wife that's like, hey, we do have to pay for diesel fuel on the way home.
Right.
And your horse isn't even full. Like my horse, I'll give her credit. And that's why, like, not to take up too much of your time, but on one of your podcasts, you talk about the importance of a ranch horse and being gritty.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where, like, that's why I love doing what I'm doing, and why her and I get along good is, of course, she moves a lot more fluid than me. That's why we work good, but she just, she's coming 4 years old, and man, she'll rope as long as what I want her to. But I've learned in the past that when I sign up 20 times, and I kind of sour my horses up, and then I get home, look at my bank account, and I'm like, well, looks like I'm gonna have to do a couple extra lessons.
That's right. So, are your lesson people in the clinic too? Is your wife roping in it?
Yeah, my wife is, and then two of my lesson people. So TJ Ebbers and his dad, Tim Ebbers. I've got quite a few other people that want to come, but just either they can't make it or they want us to haul them. And I'm like, I don't have the room. Yep. Can't make that work. So.
Well, that's awesome. Did y'all sign up for the advanced classes, or it's a bunch of different classes, isn't it? They set it all up. I was just like, I'll do it.
So and that's honestly, like, I really, really like how they set it up. Gracie and Pedro, I only met them one time, and it was for about 5 minutes. But they set it up beginner, intermediate, and advanced. I know my wife and I are doing, and that's the hard part. Like, my lesson people and some other people that are doing it are like, well, are we advanced? Are we intermediate? I said, you just got to sign up for what you're most comfortable with. Like, I teach roping for a living, and I still feel like I'm a total beginner compared to some people. But yeah, we're all signed up for the advanced part. So
if you can ride your horse and rope a cow, you're intermediate.
Yeah.
Period. If your horse can't move around, we're going to go beginner. Because, I mean, like, every clinic we have, you know how it is. Like, somebody could die, it's like kind of scary. So we'll see. I'm sure it'll be great. I'm excited. It's fun. I'm going to bring in. I got a guy here that works for me named Devin. He's going to come. He's going to film the whole thing. We're going to put it all in the EDU. Like it'll be a cool deal. So, and I'm excited about judging the rope, and that's the first one I've ever judged. And yeah, so I think I'm judging a 1-man and a roping.
Oh, sweet.
Which I don't know how the heck they're going to do that all in one day, but we'll see. I guess I'll just be tired.
Yeah, so. Judging's fun. The only hard part, because we put on a couple competitions here, and of course I've judged them, but I'm like, man, I just want to get out there and rope. I don't want to sit here and score people.
Oh, bro, I'm going to be praying you guys miss and the time limit comes up. I'm going to be sitting there freaking just dialed, Right. Anyways. Yes, all right, Cam. Well, I sure do appreciate it, man. And we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
You bet.